All right. So today I am folding a brand new pattern and it's named Line Dance. And I'm just gonna go ahead and start. I've got a grid with 80 divisions. It's diagonal to the edge. And so I'm gonna have to be a little careful about finding the center because I don't have grid lines going straight into the corners. But I can line up corners. I actually don't have pinch marks on the edges either. Can line that up. In this case, I'm starting with an open hexagon. So I need to shift these mountain folds one space. Once I have two of them, it'll be pretty obvious where the center is. But yeah, feel free to chat. I'm going to be folding at full speed. Feel free to ask questions. This pattern is in the exact same tiling as Dancing Streamers, which I taught last week. So it's a good test of skills if you want to try and fold this one, given your knowledge of the previous one. Okay. I can go ahead and zoom in. There we go. And let's see, I'm gonna have extra space with these. It's gonna be 3 spaces between parallel valleys, which of course are mountains in the crease pattern. I'm using open triangles. Of course, I will have a very easy test of whether I got the spacing right in just a moment. So I will choose to go around in this direction. Yeah. The spacing for this rhombus is a result of the spacing of the triangles, and it matches what I was expecting, which is the tip of the rhombus at the tip of the triangle. So part of why I chose to go this way around is to fold the rhombus when it's further away from the triangle I'm putting in. If I'd gone the other way, the rhombus would show up right next to the triangle that I was actively working on. And this way I can leave everything set up, ready to squash, instead of having to figure out a way to get around that corner point. And actually we'll see this one, I could open that overlap into a rhombus right away, but I'll leave it sitting for later because it would interfere with folding the triangle. But yeah, if anyone has questions or comments, I'm happy to answer. I'm also happy to top and fold. Like this morning, I finished the mulching around my new thornless blackberry patch. And yeah, that was a lot of work. Luckily, I can get wood chips for free because tree cutting companies in the area have to actually pay to dump their wood chips. And so I'm in touch with them and I can just say, hey, you can drop a load at my house for free. And they're happy to do that. So fairly unlimited free supplies for mulching. Also, the other supplies I use is used cardboard, which I did some dumpster diving for on Sunday, and I've since used my entire stash. So yeah, I've got the hexagon and then the triangles and rhombi. Next up, I want to find the triangle on this plate, and that valley is 3 spaces from this folded mountain. So and this one's a closed triangle. And then at that overlap, you can have a triangle and a rhombus. Okay. And this one's the rhombus to be. So I'm laying that down flat. While or at least keeping it out of the way while I squash the triangle. And I'm just going to double check 1, 2, 3, 4 grid spaces between triangles, 4 grid spaces, good to go. And now I'll finish this rhombus. Try not to rip the paper with the bone folder. And next overlap is 2 triangles. Both closed as close together as they can be. And this one I'll tip the corner of the rhombus up to lay this triangle flat while I squash over here. That is a lot of unfriendly overlaps. You can start to see the line of line dance forming. So once I have this triangle squashed, I'm going to leave that partial rhombus in place and see what it's like if I go around the other direction. So this triangle is the same as that one. It's headed into another triangle, which is going into a rhombus. Went ahead and squashed the rhombus first because the triangle can lay flat and the rhombus can't. By which I mean that you can take this setup of pleats for the triangle and lay them flat. Okay, yeah, this is much nicer this way around with the friendly overlaps. Oh, and one thing I haven't really announced is that I'm going to the Convention for Creators this week. And that's a convention for origami designers. And it's always a good time. I've gone before when it was in Bogota, Colombia. This time it's in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is only a 4-hour drive for me. So that's an easy thing to say yes to. Get to talk to a whole bunch of origami designers. One of the things I'm going to talk about there is how I run Advent of Tess. So basically giving advice on running a big event. And I'm also going to teach a new pattern that explores some alternative ways to use symmetries with tilings, which I think is really fun. It's also an example of a pattern that uses only basic twists with a surprising result. So that conference is part of why I hurried up and did my mulching. And tonight I'm gonna plant out a couple tomatoes and tomatillos that I've been hardening off. And conveniently, after this past night, the weather is going to be good enough for keeping tomatoes outside, which is good because I have a whole room full of plants that I will not be here to tend. And it'll be much easier on my husband if he can water them with the hose. Okay. That gets through those lines. I'm going to start the next ring around the center on this pleat because I know the spacing really clearly from what's already here. It's another triangle. It's going to go to a compound wrap. And then this side will be more triangles. And yeah, I'll live on the wild side. I'll go ahead and do the next twist on this side. So my position of threefold symmetry is in between these triangle twists. That's how I knew that these two need to be close together, like these. Rodrigo's asking if I can show photos from the convention next Tuesday. The topic that I'll be talking about next Tuesday is not directly about the convention, but I will make sure to post photos on my Instagram. I think next week's topic is something about tilings. Oh yeah, extending tilings so you can use them for bigger patterns. So I have the mini tilings in the Advent of Tess ebook, and then it's important to be able to see them bigger if you're using them for bigger patterns. And for example, with this one, I've only drawn out the tiling relatively small. And I'm not even looking at it right now, to be honest. But yeah, there's a lot to look into there. Okay, so I need to focus and see from here, from this pair, what comes next on this plate. It's a rhombus on the back, but I don't think that fits the full story. So I'm going to go ahead and jump up here to the next triangle I know needs to be in place. And my guess of what will happen is I'll fold the rhombus that I'm currently wrapping. Oh yeah, Rodrigo, I will be exhibiting at the convention. Have I decided what pieces yet? No. I'll figure it out before I drive over tomorrow. But yes, there will be photos. And then those two are in the same situation. This is feeding up into so I've got my two spaces between the intersections of the I-beam, and then this one, the plate slips down so I can do an open triangle twist. The top one lays flat to become a rhombus later. But yeah, if anyone's near Ann Arbor, there will be a public exhibition, I think on the Saturday, either Saturday or Sunday, for a few hours at the hotel where we're having the convention. And there's somewhere around 45 people coming. Probably not all exhibiting, but 45 of the top names in American origami, and international, of course, but apparently mostly American this time. Let's see. And so now I can count out how many spaces it was to that intersection. So 1, 2, 3 spaces. And I can go from the intersection instead of jumping ahead and then moving backwards. I could go ahead and set this up as a rhombus, but I'm setting it up as a three-way intersection as a placeholder. Rodrigo, I've already scheduled what's going on in the streams for the next 7 weeks, so If someone's looking for a show and tell of particular models, I do have that in my recent Tessellation Garden update video. Dun, 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 dun. Mhm. This time around, I'm going to go ahead and fully set up that next rhombus and do a triangle wrap. Which means I don't have to pick up the bone folder as many times. But yeah, the pattern is really coming together. Basically, I always say, like, oh yeah, I teach you to fold one twist at a time. That's in contrast to collapsing everything all at once. And so it might be more precise to say, I teach you to fold the twists directly on the background grid, but that's not something that is as evocative as one twist at a time. So you start with one twist at a time, and then you find out that there's some cases that require twists plus wraps. And then there's cases where your life is made easier if you set up more at the same time. But you're always squashing one at a time. But yeah, it's making these pretty flower petals. And also those are the full line motifs. I was pretty pleased when I noticed that these would fold into lines. I hadn't folded them before today, but I recognized from the crease pattern what they would do. Yeah, it's important with these three-way intersections to get the correct orientation of each pleat, because that does make a difference for the next twists. Also, conveniently, this pleat doesn't have to keep going this way. Can bounce out with a wrap. Yeah, as few simultaneous twists at a time as necessary. Or maybe I teach people to break down the process of folding tessellations into bite-sized chunks that are done directly on the grid without pre-creasing. And that gets us the rest of the way around this ring around the center. And that triangle did not want to go to the corner. Good thing the other side is the front. Yeah, that's a good distinction. So as opposed to the WWE, the wrestling style of tessellation folding, where you set up all 6 of the rhombus twists around the central closed hexagon and then just pound it. Yep. Okay, so after this, well, I know I need to finish those rhombi. And but that is kind of the top of the tiling breaks I've been working, or the... Okay. We're gonna find out whether it matters which way I work around. I've been working around this way, which is this way on the back. We're gonna see what happens if I go this way for this ring. And that's gonna be a compound wrap. Oh, this is not friendly. This will be a experiment doing both directions, kind of ring around the center. There's going to be another rhombus on the back on the other side of that, because this rhombus is a position of twofold rotational symmetry. And if I've remembered correctly from last week, that will not be folded all the way. Okay, that one needs an open triangle next to it. And yeah, this rhombus is not getting folded all the way. Placeholder time. And then that hexagon is going to be set up as a variety of intersections. But I want to experiment with going the opposite way around, so I'm going to jump up here and see, okay, hexagon's coming from the triangle. The next plate, got that 2 space gap, so the third is the valley fold. And I'll just do it as, well, okay, this is going to feed back. And we'll do it as the open form. Which I could just set up as an open trapezoid and leave it 3D and just try and work around it. Or, like I showed in the advanced wraps video, I can pop in the center and lay it flat. Then I've got these triangle wraps that turn into triangle twists. And I know I'm going to need a 3-way intersection in here for this guy, but I think that'll be easier to find from the other side when I set up my rhombus. Yes. Okay, and this is one of those awkward setups for the wrapped rhombus. I think does that do anything for me? I don't think so. I can at least get it relatively flat enough to it is interfering with the squash. That's annoying. I did like going this way around. Okay. I'm gonna come over here and squash this rhombus. Then come back and finalize this one. Okay. which is feeding into new hexagon and triangles territory. And make that flat. And then squash the triangles. Yeah, I was very happy when I figured out how to flatten the repleats going into an open hexagon slash open trapezoid. Okay. I think what I want to try, I want to see if they're mutually annoying. Like if I set this one up, is there a good way to have the other one flat? It looks like there is. I can get the teeny tiny grid divisions to cooperate. There we go. It's basically two pleats into a closed hexagon. And then I can pull one pleat down and squash. Okay. I do like this way of going around marginally better. Well, do I? It's just the way that I've been going. So, may as well. And by the top of the hour, we'll actually see repeats of the center. That's how you know it's a complicated tessellation. And there we go. So here's the argument for doing this bit from the other side. Oh, but if I'm over here, then I can guarantee that this lays down nicely. I'm not wrapping into a volatile situation. And then resolve. And resolve. Anyways, back to the garden talk. I'm planning on planting out some tomatoes, tomatillos. Well, 3 tomatoes and a tomatillo today. And then I have, I think, 4 more tomatoes and a tomatillo that I haven't hardened off yet. So those will wait until after I get back. They're also smaller plants, easier to take care of in containers. But these are ones that I started from seed last month, and they've just exploded. I also have some basil that I'm planting out and nasturtiums. And if I have time for it, I'll probably transition the sweet potato slips that are still growing out of the potato into water to start rooting the slips themselves. There's a lot of gardening to do today. And potting up the eggplants. Let's see, so if I just go ahead and start from this rhombus down here. Okay, how far between this triangle and that rhombus? 3 spaces. Kind of a mess. But does it work? If you have teeny tiny fingers or a bone folder to help. Gardening in the tessellation is the comment. So I'm going to garden outside. I do have a product called Tessellation Garden that is the collection of all of my crease patterns. It doesn't have this one in it yet because I've never folded this one before, so I don't have photos for it. But it will have this one in the next update, which should be sometime this summer. But yeah, I'm very excited about my literal physical garden this year. And so far, my prediction that the tiling breaks would line up well with a diagonal grid is holding up really well, which is nice. Let's see. I didn't really like the pleat mess last time, so I'm just gonna go back to the other way of doing it. Setting it up from this side. And then resolving on this side. And I have made it all the way around. So I've got this last hexagon and one triangle wrap, or last half of a hexagon. Oh, and another exciting piece of news is that one of my pieces, Cosmic Vision, the alternate ending of Andromeda from Advent of Test 2024, is on the cover of the latest issue of Mathematics magazine. So that is very exciting. I haven't actually seen the magazine yet, but did get a copy of Quadrato Mágico in the mail, which has a piece from me in it, which is very exciting. And yeah, they did a great job with formatting it. And now I'm starting the next ring around the center. Like I said 10-ish minutes ago, we're getting close to the top of the hour, and I'm folding the first repeats of the center. So here, I'm going to do that workaround because the triangle is so close to the rhombus, where I make the triangle like it's a closed triangle, squash the rhombus, and then bring the triangle back as an open triangle. Thanks, Rodrigo. And here, like I did around the center, I'm gonna push that up. And let's see. So that's a full stripe. It's going up to triangle on this side, rhombus on the other side at that intersection. And there's 4 spaces between triangle corners. So there. Could have also looked at how far that location was from the open triangle hole, but here we are. And I do get to finish that rhombus because I need to do something on that pleat to start the next cascade of pleat overlaps. And here I'm going to go ahead and set up the hexagon with a triangle wrap instead of trying to fold the triangle and have the pleat interact well with the 3 pleats already going into the hexagon. That would be a recipe for disaster. And so it took until this point to get past what we did in the tutorial last week, is there we stopped halfway through the next hexagons from the center. Actually, I don't have to just say that, I can show you. Stopped when, oh, we did do the whole hexagons. I thought we did half hexagon tubes, but then we kept going. Okay, cool. So same amounts of things, but this one's spaced a lot denser in terms of twists per area of grid. Okay, this was the 2, 4, and go. And I think I'm gonna put on my headphones, and unless we get some more conversation going, I'll keep listening to the podcast I was listening to, which is talking about the life of John Brown and his raid on the Harper's Ferry arsenal just before the U.S. Civil War in a bid to spark widespread slave revolts. So, unless anyone has questions. Oh, and I should mention, this podcast is from Hardcore History, which I definitely recommend. Okay. Good morning, Zach. I'm glad to see you. That gets me through this ring around the center, and I'll go ahead and start the next one. We're almost to a point where it's reasonable to count and make sure that I actually got this centered correctly. Fairly confident, but you never know. I've been wrong before. Live. But yeah, I'm gonna start that next ring. Okay, so that finishes another ring around the center. And I think I'll go ahead and do the last ring, maybe two. This will be a long video, but everyone always asks how long does one of these patterns take? And yeah, the answer is quite a while. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, 2 hours actually is on the low end of um, patterns on 80 grid divisions. But yeah, it does take quite a lot of time to fold these with repeats, especially these more complicated ones. And yeah, there's definitely a lot more that take longer to fold, even for me. I'd say most of them on 64 divisions take at least 2 hours. Hmm. One more set of parallel pleats. Almost there. All right. Line dance is now complete. So I'm deciding to stop at this point because I think if I go any closer to the edge of the paper, I'm going to end up with some pleats that are over the edge. This is working pretty well. And here's the back side. You can see that kind of classic hex try, rom try pattern on the back. And let's take a look at the backlighting, which I have never seen. So we've got that kind of wheel structure in the center. And the lines are a little hard to see with the twists on the back. Interesting. Thought they would stick out a bit more, and maybe they would with backlighting over a bigger area. And then on this side, a lot of blank space. A lot of blank space. Which is why I was able to get through this whole thing in under 2 hours, not counting the grid. The grid was probably another 2 hours, also listening to stuff. So happy folding, everyone, and maybe I'll see some of you at the Convention for Creators in Ann Arbor, and the rest of you I'll see next week talking about tilings. So happy folding, everyone, and see you then.